We believe the borders should remain open. That's the official position of the city, but we have made it clear there should be a decompression strategy that we could properly deal with the volumes that's coming into our city, and no cities should have to carry the burden of the national government. Those who are here, figure out what we're going to do about employment, allowing people to have a pathway to pursue the American dream, secure our borders, have a decompression strategy, allow employment, deal with those who are repeated criminal offenders in our country. This is not new. It didn't matter to me who was the president. I've been saying this over and over again, and voters said the same thing.
Welcome back to another edition of the Sal Greco Show, and I'm your host, Sal Greco. So what you just listened to and saw before the start of the show here, Eric Adams initially, over a year ago, stated that the position in New York City is that the borders are to remain open. Now that he's been indicted and he's got 4 other probes he's got to worry about, and now that President Trump is the new president of the United States, he's now saying that the border should be secure. So just so you all see for your own eyes, it's not me picking on him. There's not other people like my friends John Macari and Eric Dim who have been critical of Mr. Eric Adams and constantly showing you all the improprieties that Eric Adams seems to show everybody on a daily basis, at least people that are not low information, and all the improprieties in regards to the police department and everything else in the world of Eric Adams. You just heard that he has 2 different stories for one subject, depending on where he should be, politically speaking, whether it's one person in charge or another person in charge. So nothing about him is real. This is who you're seeing come out now. This is the Eric Adams us former New York City police officers know him to be. The guy talks out of both sides of his mouth. Have I ever lied to any of you about anything in regards to Eric Adams? So we have that. So you just heard his policy shift, allegedly, but he's still, back and forth, depending on what time of day, if you ask him the question about immigration. But in the last couple of days, there's been a few reports in regards to this indictment that he has currently. The one that we know about, which is the straw donor scheme involving Turkish foreign nationals and Turkish foreign entities with straw donors. This indictment now, so we come to find out exactly who one of the witnesses apparently are against Eric Adams. So let me put this up on the screen. I am going to read both articles for you. One about this witness and then evidence that they just try to, I guess it's still on the internet, of Eric Adams just a month ago hanging out with this guy apparently, and he's not allowed to under his indictment. So just everything you could think of that could go wrong in the world of Eric Adams usually does. So let me just read this off and show you. All right, so this one's out of the Los Angeles Magazine. Meet the CIA asset who was snuck out of a Utah jail to take down NYC Mayor Eric Adams. Turkish billionaire Sezgin Baran Korkmaz is slated to testify against Adams, several sources confirm, as the embattled mayor asked a judge to speed up his trial date to accommodate his re-election bid plans. This is by Michelle McPhee. Here's the picture of former CIA director and Trump administration advisor James Woolsey and Turkish billionaire and reputed CIA asset Baron Korkmaz. A reputed CIA asset Turkish billionaire Sezgin Baran Korkmaz is allegedly cooperating with federal officials in a sweeping investigation into New York City Mayor Eric Adams and is expected to take the stand in the former NYPD captain and Brooklyn Borough President's 2025 trial, Los Angeles has learned. Korkmaz was indicted in Utah on money laundering charges connected to a scheme run by a LA fuel magnate and a Mormon apologist cult sect that pilfered $500 million in bogus biofuel subsidies. Prosecutors say Korkmaz helped the unlikely criminal compatriots launder $133 million in stolen taxpayer cash, and when the green energy swindle led to a slew of arrests in LA and Utah, the billionaire went on the run. Interpol tracked his movements for years and found him in June 2021 getting a massage at a five-star hotel in Austria. Korkmaz was extradited to Utah in 2022, where a judge ordered him held without bail after the government argued he was a flight risk, one with every incentive to flee the United States as well as the financial means to do so. However, sometime after he arrived in the U.S., Korkmaz was inexplicably released from Utah jail and was spotted in New York City this summer distributing food from a Turkish restaurant. A free man, despite the litany of criminal charges he continues to face in Utah, and the government's own assertion that he is a flight risk with access to tens of millions of dollars. According to the docket in his federal criminal case, Korkmaz is now slated to go on trial in November 2025, 4 years after his arrest. Korkmaz, who court records call a man with long-running entanglements with domestic and foreign governments, has been identified as, quote, businessman number 3, end quote, in the 57-page federal indictment that charges Mayor Adams with accepting luxury travel and foreign cash from bad actors in Turkey. Adams' relationship with Turkish officials and the country's wealthiest occupants began in 2014 when he was elected as Brooklyn's borough president, federal prosecutors say. Over the next decade, according to the indictment, he, quote, sought and accepted improper valuable benefits such as luxury international travel, including from wealthy foreign business people and at least one Turkish government official seeking to gain influence over him, end quote. Korkmaz, who counts former CIA Director James Woolsey as a friend, was once a keynote speaker alongside Adams and members of Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan's administration during the United Nations General Assembly in 2017. Then, during a trip to Istanbul in 2019 and against the advice of a Turkish official who warned Korkmaz was, quote, under suspicion of wrongdoing, end quote, Adams met with the businessman number 3, now identified as Korkmaz. The two discussed Korkmaz making a $50,000 campaign contribution to Adams' 2021 mayoral campaign. Quote, believing he, Adams, might one day be the president of the United States, end quote, according to the indictment. Because Korkmaz is a foreign national, the discussion turned to the use of straw donors in the U.S., which would make the contributions illegal. Before those monies could prop up Adams' campaign, prosecutors unraveled a money trail that led to the Turkish billionaire, saying, quote, Korkmaz and his co-conspirators allegedly used the biofuel fraud proceeds to acquire luxury homes and assets, as well as businesses such as Biopharma, the Turkish airline Borajet, and a yacht named the Queen Anne, a hotel in Turkey, and a villa and apartment on the Bosporus River in Istanbul, end quote. As this complicated and bizarre case was unwinding in Utah, Adams cut off contact with Korkmaz and refused to meet with the indicted billionaire in New York City, according to his indictment. He never accepted the troubled businessman's contribution, the indictment states, because businessman number 3's legal troubles in Turkey and the United States became public. Adams, the first sitting New York City mayor to be indicted, has pled not guilty and refuses to step down as he insists on his innocence. When he became mayor, the indictment says Adams agreed to ignore Armenian Genocide Remembrance Day in 2022 after a Turkish official, quote, repeatedly, end quote, demanded Adams bypass any statements of condolences to its victims and deference to Turkey's ongoing denial of the atrocities that began in 1915 when the Ottoman Empire began a targeted decimation of its civilian Armenian population. The systematic killings continued until 1923, when the Ottoman Empire ceased to exist and was replaced by the Republic of Turkey. On Monday, attorneys for Adams filed a letter with the federal judge requesting an early trial date so that the mayor could push his re-election bid. In it, his attorney wrote that Adams' scheduled March 2025 trial date will impede his campaign schedule. Quote, "It is likely that many New Yorkers will cast their ballots on the first days of early voting, which begins on June 14, 2025. An earlier trial date will ensure that Mayor Adams' speedy trial rights are upheld, that the mayor will be able to fully participate in his re-election campaign, and that this city's voters can be rid of the distraction of this misguided indictment," end quote, he wrote, adding criticism for federal prosecutors in the Southern District of New York. Quote, "The prosecutors could have indicted Mayor Adams on a timeline that did not interfere with the campaign or waited until after the election, but they chose to proceed him knowing that their preferred schedule put the trial right in the middle of the Democratic primary," end quote. So this is from the Daily News. NYC Mayor Adams spotted at same event as Turkish businessman who reportedly could testify against him. And here's the picture right there. This is by Chris Sommerfeld, Josephine Stratman, and Molly Crane Newman. After coming under federal indictment, Mayor Adams appeared at a food giveaway event in Manhattan last month that was also attended by a scandal-scarred Turkish business tycoon who reportedly could testify against him at his corruption trial, the Daily News has learned. The tycoon, Sezgin Baran Korkmaz, is mentioned in Adams' indictment, identified as businessman number 3, a development first reported by LA Magazine Tuesday. Citing several sources familiar with the matter, the California Magazine also reported Korkmaz is a reputed CIA asset and expected to testify against Adams at his trial, which is slated to start in April 2025. According to his indictment, Adams met with businessman number 3 in Istanbul in January 2019 to discuss plans for the businessman to make an allegedly illegal $50,000 contribution to his 2021 campaign via straw donors. Quote, "During the meeting, businessman number 3 agreed to contribute $50,000 or more to the 2021 campaign, believing that Adams might one day be the president of the United States and hoping to gain influence with Adams," end quote, the indictment says. The businessman ultimately never made that contribution as his legal troubles in the U.S. began to emerge, according to court papers. Adams crossing paths with Korkmaz at last month's food giveaway comes as the mayor is under a federal protective order prohibiting him from speaking with, quote, "witnesses and individuals mentioned in," end quote, his indictment, quote, "about the facts/circumstances listed in the indictment," end quote, court papers say. Days after indicting Adams in September on charges that he solicited bribes and illegal campaign cash from Turkish government operatives, prosecutors from the Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office provided his legal team with a list identifying the individuals he shouldn't speak with. It's unclear if Korkmaz, who is currently facing unrelated federal charges in a money laundering case in Utah, is on that list. A City Hall spokeswoman did not immediately return a request for comment on whether the mayor was aware of Korkmaz's participation in the event. A video reviewed by the News posted by Korkmaz shows him handing out food, money, and supplies to New Yorkers at the October 16th giveaway, as the mayor can be seen standing feet away wearing his signature GSD NYC bomber jacket and the cap. The video does not show Adams and Korkmaz speaking to each other. It's unclear who hosted the food giveaway event, which the mayor attended without listing it on his schedule of public appearances. The mayor did post photos on his official X account from the event and included a caption saying He was there to help, quote, making sure New Yorkers had a warm meal on a cold night, end quote. Adams has pleaded not guilty to the charge of the indictment, and his attorney, Alex Spiro, didn't return a request for comment Wednesday. The Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office declined to comment. A lawyer listed as representing Korkmaz in the Utah case didn't immediately return a request for comment about the food giveaway event he attended in the Lower East Side last month. The details about the October 16th food giveaway event are emerging as Korkmaz is fighting his own criminal case in Utah. Korkmaz was indicted in that federal case in 2021 on charges alleging he helped launder hundreds of millions of dollars in taxpayer-funded biofuel subsidies that his co-conspirators had stolen. Korkmaz has pleaded not guilty in that case, and his trial was initially supposed to start last week. However, just last week, he got the trial pushed back to start March 10th instead. So there you have it. We have a report of this Turkish billionaire, Korkmaz, who's apparently a CIA asset, who's involved in his own federal case. And he's trying to bribe Eric Adams just a couple of years ago. And then he's just standing next to him about a month ago. And apparently he's a witness in this case. And you see how mum everybody is about it in Eric Adams' world. This stinks to high heaven. I mean, listen, no, this is not political. You just read about something that occurred long before there was a quote unquote migrant crisis, And if you didn't think that was troubling enough, let me read to you this entire separate issue, which has to do with Eric raising money at a fundraiser that's like all over YouTube apparently, and it's someone involved with Winnie Greco, and there's no records of this. This is this guy is just unbelievable. The twists and turns in the world of Eric Adams. So let me show this and let me read this off to you. It's just my mind is spinning even when I first saw this. Eric Adams reaped public dollars from a so-called small donor barbecue. Video shows a lavish Long Island soiree. Instead, seeking $362,000 in matching funds, the Adams campaign reported 231 small donors linked to a party costing less than $500. The reality was caviar and cognac with the host, whose mall was later raided by the FBI. This is by George Joseph, Alyssa Katz, Yoav Gonan, and Katie Honan from the city. They are working overtime to bring facts to the New Yorkers who, a lot of them are low information and don't even bother reading stuff like this when they should, especially now. The story was co-published with The Guardian, and a campaign that pulled in more than $10 million in public matching dollars from the taxpayers of New York City. The August 2021 fundraiser on Long Island for then mayoral nominee Eric Adams was a standout. It booked 231 donations, many of them from supermarket cashiers, delivery people, and other low-wage workers at the New World Mall in Queens, each listed as having made contributions of $249 or $250. Their contributions were worth far more thanks to the matching funds program, which was designed to root out the influence of big money elections by matching the first $250 of contributions from New York City residents 8 times over with public funds. The campaign sought $362,000 in matching funds on the basis of the $55,000 it raised entirely in small donations. But a video recently discovered on YouTube and reviewed by the City and The Guardian reveals an event hosted by New World Mall President Leon Wu Xiaohou and his family at their Long Island mansion that doesn't appear to have a grassroots fundraiser. The video disappeared from YouTube following this article's publication, replaced with a note, quote, "This video has been removed by the uploader," end quote. Instead, it was a private affair for a few dozen people, replete with caviar, Martin, cognac, and $400 bottles of wine. A team of chefs, in crisp uniforms, sliced sashimi and seared cuts of meat with a blowtorch. Servers passed around platters of sushi and uni hors d'oeuvres. After the initial mingling with a professional DJ livening the party, the guests sat down amid bouquets of pink roses to eat lobster and raised glasses of 2017 vintage Opus One and esteemed Napa Valley Red to toast Adams. The campaign has claimed that the house party cost less than $500 and that it's exempt from rules that require a host spending more than that to claim the expenses as an in-kind contribution. They also required a host to take responsibility for the integrity of every donation as a named, quote, intermediary, end quote, for the funds. Shao, the host, had already given the maximum permitted to the commission, disqualifying him from further contributions. The video suggests few of the 231 donors, most listed as city residents, were present at the party at the $4 million Glen Head mansion, more than an hour and a half by public transit from the mall. One of the listed donors interviewed by the city and documented last year and not present at the event said they were reimbursed by mall management, while 3 others said they did not give at all. Adams, following a tight victory in the decisive Democratic primary, was the beaming guest of honor and showered his fellow guests with thanks before sitting down for the meal in a wood-paneled dining room. Tonight is not a fundraiser only. This is also an opportunity to say thank you to some old friends, Adams effused. Behind the event was an increasingly tangled history involving the campaign's fundraising. At Adams' side was his liaison to Asian communities, Winnie Greco, who resigned last month as part of a wave of departures of Adams' administration officials on the federal investigation. The 25-minute video shows Greco center stage in a tailored white jacket welcoming Shao and his family, stage managing and joining photo ops with Adams and clearing food from Adams' table. Her niece, Angel Cheng, who was with the campaign, and Gladys Miranda, and Adams staff from his office as Brooklyn Borough President, are also present. Both currently work in the Adams mayoral administration, a spokesperson said. The pair attended, quote, in a personal capacity, end quote. Addressing his self-wishers, Adams credited his razor-thin primary victory to backing from the Chinese community, where Greco focused her volunteer fundraising efforts. Quote, I thank you so much for your support, end quote, he said, quote, and I will never, never, never forget what you did for me, end quote. Greco played a central role in Adams' fundraiser at the New World Mall, including 2 earlier 2021 fundraisers, both held at the mall's Royal Queen restaurant, where large numbers of mall workers were among the donors, many giving $249. Earlier this year, the FBI raided her 2 homes in the Bronx, and the same day that agents also raided the office of the New World Mall. A separate federal criminal probe led to Adams' indictment earlier this year for allegedly soliciting and accepting illegal donations from wealthy Turkish nationals who passed their money through small straw donors in order to yield Adams additional public matching funds. Adams, who faces charges of wire fraud, bribery, and soliciting campaign donations from foreign nationals, has pled not guilty. His campaign attorney, Vito Pita, in response to detailed questions about the barbecue and its sponsorship, sent a statement to the city and The Guardian. Quote, our campaign always explains the rules that govern fundraising events to event hosts and relies on those individuals to document the cost of events and provide them to the campaign. The campaign then reports those details in its filings. End quote, he wrote. Quote, we are currently working with CFB on a post-election audit. As part of the standard post-election audit process, we are reviewing the details of this event to determine which costs are attributable to the campaign as fundraising costs. Our understanding is that there was a pre-existing all-day social gathering that was unrelated to the campaign, and costs must be allocated accordingly, end quote. A drip of straw donor allegations. It's been close to 18 months since allegations began to build about Adams' 2021 fundraising. They first erupted in an indictment of 6 people by Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg last June, including a high-ranking former cop Adams had known for years. They eventually pled guilty in a straw donor scheme where 24 people were reimbursed for their contributions. In between that indictment and Adams reporting to the city, The Guardian and The Documented zeroed in on the New World Mall and on Greco, who worked out of an Adams campaign office in the mall. The Adams campaign held a string of fundraisers at the mall's Royal Queen Banquet Hall, including events in April and June 2021, where many of the donations came in from workers at the J Mart supermarket and other mall businesses. The campaign reported dozens of mall workers as small dollar contributors and submitted their donations to the Campaign Finance Board, the independent, nonpartisan agency that oversees election spending and the Public Matching Funds program. It sought matching funds despite glaring irregularities in its filings. Last summer, the city and Documented set out to find some of the cashiers, waiters, delivery men, and other workers that Adams campaigns have reported making $249 donations connected to the barbecue in Glen Head. Unusually for campaign donors, almost none of the, quote, barbecue, end quote, event contributors could be found in voter registration rolls. When the city and Documented did locate contributors based on home addresses listed on their donation cards, few were willing to speak with reporters. 3 said they did not donate to Adams, including a woman who was listed in Adams campaign records as a, quote, delivery man, end quote, at a restaurant that doesn't do delivery and that she says she never worked for. A low-level employee at the Bensonhurst J Mart, whose check and paperwork were signed a few days after Shaw's event, also said he had not donated to Adams. The handwriting on the payment line of his check to, quote, Eric Adams 2021, end quote, is distinctly different than on the dollar amount. Another purported barbecue donor who works at the mall said they donated at the behest of their employer at the mall and received reimbursement in cash for the contribution then and there, as the city and Documented previously reported. Such reimbursements are forbidden, as stated on the English and Chinese language Campaign Finance Board contribution form signed by donors. Quote, I don't really know how the donation process works, end quote, the employee said. Quote, but I gave the person my identity, and that was it. To use my identity, and then they pay the money, end quote. A mall mogul. For Shao, the bustling, multi-tiered New World Mall is more than an anchor of Flushing's Roosevelt Avenue corridor. It has been a crowning success. In a court deposition, he described his education as ending in middle school in China before he immigrated to the United States in 1990 and obtained his green card. He said soon after arriving, he worked at a restaurant, then at a garment factory, and later as a supermarket manager before launching the mall in an old Alexander's department store building that he and another shareholder leased from the owner of the site. Shao and his wife, Tai Ling Huang, were at one point listed in court records as 50% owners of J Mart, the sprawling supermarket that anchors the mall, and Huang was named as a minority owner of the Royal Queen Banquet Hall. Campaign records show the Adams team spending more than $50,000 on 7 events at the Royal Queen. Expenditure reports show that the campaign spent more than $35,640 on food menu items for the first 2 Royal Queen events, serving a total of 1,055 guests in April 2018 and January 2020. Yet campaign records report just 82 donations from those 2 events, totaling less than the campaign spent. The 2 later Royal Queen fundraisers in April and June 2021 opened a cascade of funding for the Adams campaign, boosted by the donations attributed to workers at J Mart and other mall businesses. Few of those employees had ever registered to vote, much less given money to a candidate before. All told, they raised nearly $47,000, and the Adams campaign submitted a request based on them for $182,216 in matching funds. Then came the, quote, barbecue, end quote, on August 8, 2021 at Huang and Shao's 7,500 square foot home in Glen Head. Standing in front of American flag themed balloon arrangements and a wall-sized campaign banner with, quote, Eric Adams for mayor, end quote, in Chinese and 4 other languages, Adams gave a 5-minute speech promising to fight anti-Asian violence, and opened 5 new high schools equivalent to Stuyvesant, and thanking the guests for helping him in the highly competitive primary. Xiao and Wang could not be reached for comment. A person who picked up the phone at the New World Mall's main number said he did not want to comment, then hung up. In a draft audit on the Adams campaign, the Campaign Finance Board found 24 of the 231 donations to the barbecue, quote, preliminarily deemed invalid, end quote, for matching funds because of bad addresses, undisclosed employers, or other irregularities. The campaign has repeatedly obtained extensions to deadlines to respond to the draft and now has until November 29th to submit proof the claims are valid or withdraw them. In addition to questioning 24 donations at the barbecue, the CFB flagged hundreds of others filed by the Adams team, and they suspected were gathered by undisclosed intermediaries. Campaign finance records obtained by the city in 2023 showed. The draft order of the campaign found that his team didn't document $2.3 million in expenses. A lingering barbecue question. To help ensure that donors at fundraising events actually spend their own money as required by law, the Campaign Finance Board requires hosts of house parties to sign on to all donations there when the parties cost $500 or more. The Adams campaign previously told the city that the barbecue cost less than $500, even as the event claimed 231 donors. Reporting any more than that would have invited problems. If a host spends more than $500, every dollar spent on a house party has to be reported as an in-kind donation to the campaign and counts toward the host's total donation limit. According to the handbook, all candidates in the public financing program must follow. Liang Wu Chao had already donated the maximum permitted to the campaign, $2,000 in January of 2021. What's more, hosts who spend more than $500 have to register as a, quote, intermediary, end quote, personally responsible for every donation brought in. The required, quote, intermediary statement, end quote, reads, quote, I did not, nor to my knowledge did anyone else reimburse any contributor in any manner, end quote, and notes that violation may be a felony. After publication of an article in the city a year ago documented what the Campaign Finance Board suspected were unreported intermediaries, a spokesperson for Adams' campaign said the board had receipts on files that would document Xiao's spending on the barbecue and show that it costs less than $500. The city filed a Freedom of Information law request with the Campaign Finance Board. The board replied that it has no documentation of expenses for the event. Additional reporting by Bianca Palaro. So I know the article was rather long and, there's a lot to read there, but I wanted everybody to hear this article and read the article because it's a blueprint for an indictment. You see, that entire, whatever happened there, it's outrageous that you haven't even heard of a court date for that yet. That whole thing right there with the people from Red China and these donors, and this is an indictment. And it's funny how nobody wants to fess up to anything, especially when the city calls. So it's very premature to talk about a commutation or a pardon for Eric Adams for anything. I don't know if there are any discussions with the incoming Trump administration, but trust me, with the way this is looking and sounding, there should be something on the horizon very shortly in forms of another indictment for Mr. Eric Adams and probably many others, because this is like, look, I understand how politics are. I see how people, there's plenty of people either doing something right now that's probably not on the up and up or have done stuff. But the way that Eric and his friends, and I'm talking about the people in his administration, have gone about this, he has to be held accountable. Him and all his cronies. I'm sorry. He's a disgrace of a mayor. If you think this is, as bad as this is, let me show you some, I guess is the highlight of a press conference where they just announced this whole they're bringing drones to the police department. They love drones. I want to know if Kaz Dodry, who we don't know. I mean, he's the deputy commissioner of operations, but he's putting in overtime slips as if he's a detective. Nobody still wants to answer the question of how that all is, because that's technically a felony. But we're going to forget about that for the moment. There's a press conference, and they're discussing how these drones work, who's going to be operating them, what's the benefit for the taxpayers, and you're going to hear how many cops are in this drone unit. And then you have to ask yourselves in New York City, geez, why don't I see any cops on the street? Where are they? Oh, that's right. You're going to hear where they are right now.
I'm having trouble keeping track of different commands that you mentioned. You said five commands in three precincts, and then you mentioned the deputy of operation drone units in various. Are those units around? Are those different?
Yep.
Different commands, different precincts, different officers.
So we have a mobile deputy commissioner of operations drone teams. They're assigned to TARU. They're assigned to the DFR program. And we have 5 commands that we have identified that we're using drones in the 7-5 precinct, the 6-7 precinct, the 7-1 precinct, the 4-8 precinct, and Central Park precinct.
How is that different from the deputy of operations drones?
It's the same thing.
Same thing.
Yes, it is.
Great.
Yeah.
And how many officers are we talking about?
That's part of the DFR team.
Yeah.
I'm confused. Officers from what?
When you say commands, is
Oh, okay. The drone team. So there's about 60 officers to say? Yeah.
how many drones are we actually talking about?
We have 109 drones in our fleet.
And what were the officers?
Okay, we have to go to another question. Thanks.
Go ahead. Yeah, you can.
Yes, you can talk to me afterwards.
Are the drones going to be used to keep a bird's eye view of Central Park even when an investigation isn't ongoing?
Yes. So the drones are going to be responding to 911 calls that come over for Central Park Precinct. And when they're not responding to 911 calls, I want the drone team to be on patrol like a regular police car that you see driving up and down Central Park. I want them to do the same thing, looking for any type of anomalies, looking for any fights. I want them to be on patrol to add an extra layer of eyes up there to keep this park safe.
Is that in the other precincts as well?
Correct.
So, one, who's flying that thing? I didn't see anyone. Who's flying it? Where are they?
Over here.
They're back there?
Yep.
All right.
But so that's a good question. So when we leave, they're going to be piloting this drone from the Joint Operations Center at One Police Plaza. We have our DFR room, and that's where the drone operators, they pilot the drones for the precincts that I mentioned, the 5 commands that have DFR. We're doing it here to show and tell you, but when we leave, it's going to go back to the remote operations, and they're going to take responsibilities for that back at the Joint Operations Center.
And so my actual question was about the patrol. There's drones as first responders, but are you going to be using them before there is something to respond to? You said yes, so I just want to know, I saw the DFR program mentioned in press earlier this summer. Have you already been using them as patrols, and what is the system that helps? Is it just the operator's naked eyes? Is there some kind of AI used?
These are police officers. They're trained, certified police officers with the FAA Flight 107 license. They're cops. They're doing their assignment, but they're looking at a screen from the drone screen, from the live feed, and looking for crime, as you could say, looking for any anomalies that up there in the sky. And there's no AI. There's no AI in these drones. I want to say that again. We're not using any artificial intelligence in the drones.
Why these 5 specific precincts? Were they already using these drones, or they're just?
A couple of months ago in August, we were up over 40% in crime in Central Park. We put a lot of resources inside of Central Park, drones, bike teams, additional officers. And now I'm happy to report that we are down 35% in crime. And we're going to use this technology also to keep crime down inside of Central Park. To faster response times for any type of assault, lost kid, you name it, these drones are going to get there first. 800 miles of acres here? 800 acres this park is. Over 70 entrances to this park. This technology is going to help these officers cover all this park more efficiently.
Safe to say that the 5 precincts were chosen or was a part of the decision because there was higher crime rates in those?
No. We chose the commands by grids where we can, with the FAA, where we can actually fly at. And we have identified over 40 other commands that we're looking at as well.
They're showing a drone, I guess it's a pilot, program or something where they're putting them in certain precincts, one of which I used to work in. I used to work in the 71st precinct early on in my career. But so the drones, I believe there's over 100 of them in the city, and there's 60 operators of these drones. They're not even 2 cops per drone, but let's just say there's 1 drone in the precinct. Trust me, that 1 drone is not going to cover all the radio runs, all the calls into the precinct, into 911 operator where they're supposed to go. We don't even know what calls they're designated for. So these are cops that have an FAA license. That's great. But since there's 60 of them there, when there's and listen, there's going to be plenty of days where there's no one calling 911 that a drone needs to be flown over for. But what are these cops going to be doing when they're not flying a drone? He says, Kaz Daughtry, the deputy commissioner of operations or detective, whatever he is on paper and reality. So whatever he says that they're going to be out on patrol, meaning the 2 cops at a time will be in a car somewhere. I find that hard to believe because we have never seen the cops that are in that other unit, the deputy commissioner of public information's office where there's 80 of them there. See, they're all full duty. And between this little scheme of a unit and the other scheme of a unit, deputy commissioner of public information's office, there's 140 full duty cops that could be in the street or on your street corner and actually in their precincts where they don't have any manpower, where the police academy was just like annihilated a weekend ago and they don't even know why. And because there's not enough cops to do, station house security at night because they send precinct cops to do that where the precinct doesn't have any cops because 140 of them in just 2 units that are, could be manned by like 4 cops total. So now you're seeing why you have trouble in New York City. Kaz Daughtry and his brilliance, the man-child. I don't know where this guy gets his intelligence or how he made it this far in his police career, but bravo. And unfortunately, New York City taxpayers are on the hook for this guy's brilliant ideas. And your public safety's at risk because last time I checked, the drones can't stop a crime from occurring or arrest somebody. That needs to be a human being wearing a police officer's uniform. And unfortunately, I don't know if these drones are supposed to replace police officers, but sticking them all in a unit where they're looking at a computer screen the majority of their time, that's not going to help public safety either. Where are the cops that can actually sit on a corner or run around? They're not there because they're in these units. So remember, when you see a police officer in a corner, go over there and hug them because they don't have enough of their friends to help them in case something happens. Just so you understand how this whole scheme of Kaz Daughtry and Eric Adams works there. And now we're going to end this show with one final piece of an article. It's in regards to another friend of Eric Adams, and that's Puff Daddy Sean Combs. So let me show you this article. Let me read this off to you. This is from the Daily News. Ray J says celebs are offering hush money to Diddy victims. This is by Jamie Gans of the Daily News. Sean Diddy Combs collaborator Ray J claims that celebrities have told him they're offering hush money to victims of the embattled mogul who is awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking and racketeering charges. The 43-year-old, quote, sexy can I, close quote, singer made the claims in, quote, The Downfall of Diddy Inside the Freak-Offs, TMZ's third Tubi documentary, end quote, about the legal woes of Combs, who is currently locked up at Brooklyn MDC. Quote, I'm hearing about artists paying victims to keep their name out of it, end quote. Ray J told TMZ founder Harvey Levine. Ray J, who claims he never attended any of Combs', quote, freak-offs, end quote, was initially vague when asked whether he knew people who'd been paid off. Quote, here's what I do know. People do catching kills all day, end quote, he said. Quote, somebody has the truth. Somebody pays you to keep it quiet. And hopefully that money that you got paid secures your happiness while you watch the lie continue to succeed. Here's the other way around that, Harvey. I'll give you money. Please don't talk. Is that the same thing? End quote. Ray J then alleged that he's receiving calls from people who, quote, want to tell me about certain things that happened with them and Diddy, end quote. Levine asked whether those calls are coming from, quote, high-profile people, end quote, who fear Ray J would be, quote, the vessel, end quote, for disclosing their ties to the Bad Boy Records founder. Quote, yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. And I don't even know why I just said it, but I said it. So what? Now they got be mad. Come get me, F-U-C-K it, end quote, said Ray J, though he wouldn't confirm whether these individuals disclose what exactly they did with Combs. Quote, I don't want to say I think I said too much, end quote. Late last month, Chris Brown reportedly broke up a burgeoning brawl between Diddy's adult sons and Ray J over remarks made about Combs following his September arrest. Sean Combs, whose other friend is Eric Adams, I found out that Eric Adams, I'm just going to put this on, it's on the screen. So Eric Adams was in a music video and a cameo for Notorious B.I.G., which was Sean Puff Daddy Combs' friend. And this video, Juicy, there's a clip right here. I can show you. There's the picture of Eric Adams on the, I guess he's on the lamppost there. So how long or how well or, how many years have Eric Adams and Puff Daddy Sean Combs known each other? I really hope with the incoming Trump administration that P. Diddy list, if it does exist, goes public so that we could actually see if Eric Adams or anybody that I've mentioned in the past on this show that frequented places like Con Sofrito are also on that list. And I'll leave you with that. So if you liked what you heard, if you liked what you saw, if you're on Rumble, you can hit the Rumble button, hit the follow button on YouTube, hit that like, hit that share, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification button as well. And if you're listening on any major podcast streaming platforms, please give it a like and follow. And trust me, I'll be back very soon with some more information on the ongoings of New York City. Because now that President Trump was elected, it doesn't mean it's over. I told everybody state elections, local elections mean more than presidential. And you're starting to see the ramifications exactly of this, especially in New York City. Because remember, you don't want that to come to your town. So hopefully people begin to wake up, because all Eric Adams and his ilk like to target are low information people. That's who they like to target. And with that being said, I'll see you all soon, and good morning, good afternoon, and good night.